because I was 9 when I became a foster child. As much as I'd like to forget the day I was removed from my home, I can't. And believe me, I've tried. Instead, I remember everything about it. I remember sitting in my 4th grade class, reading Where the Red Fern Grows, and thank the Lord we hadn't gotten to the part of what those red ferns represented. I would have lost it. But I remember reading that when the classroom phone rang, and I remember my teacher getting my attention, Shanon, telling me that I was needed in the principal's office. And I remember so clearly the way that my classmates looked at me when she told me, make sure you grab your jacket and backpack because you're not coming back. Maybe she meant you're not coming back for the rest of the afternoon, or maybe it meant something else. And when I got to the front office, I knew something was wrong, because my principal, who was louder than any other man I had ever met before, was so quiet, and he said very little as he led me to my nurse's office. And then what happened next was a total blur of fear and confusion, because waiting for me there wasn't Mrs. Zerbst, the school nurse I had known for years, but a woman I had never seen before. She introduced herself as a CPS worker, and she didn't waste any time in telling me that I wouldn't be going home that day, and that she was taking me to live with a new family instead. When I asked why, she told me it wasn't my fault that I couldn't go home, but that everything was going to be okay. But you know what? There was nothing about that moment that was okay. Because that woman, that stranger danger, was not reassuring me, she was scaring me. And I became even more frightened when I asked her when I could go home, and she said, I don't know, but not anytime soon. And then she left, because there wasn't a foster home ready for me yet, and she had to go find one. And instead of being taken to a wonderful, magical place like Amara's sanctuary, where a loving adult could care for me, maybe pack me a bag of clothes, and explain what was happening, she had me stay in my nurse's office. And there I stayed, tucked in a corner of the room, all alone, for hours and hours, with nothing to do but ask myself over and over again, what did I do so wrong that my parents didn't want me anymore? And during those hours, my heart broke a million times, because it only took a few hours for me to convince myself that this was all my fault, and that my parents weren't letting me come home because of one simple reason: they stopped loving me. So by the time my CPS worker came back for me, I was done asking questions, except for one. So how am I going to get back to school tomorrow? And her answer ruined me, because she said, you won't be coming back. You'll start a new school closer to your foster home later this week. And that's when I lost it. I didn't so much cry. It was more like a wail, like the ugly cry we do as adults. Because in a matter of hours, I lost my family and I lost my school. And for a child, without those two things, you lose something so much more important, and that's your sense of belonging. And bless her heart, my school nurse, who watched all of this happen, wasted no time in sitting next to me, pulling me into her arms and hugging me as fiercely as possible. And through my sobs, I heard her say to my CPS worker, would it be possible for me to pick Shanon up and take her home every day so she won't have to change schools? And for a split second, my fear became hope. And that answer changed everything, because in the end, CPS said yes. And Mrs. Zerbst became the one person I could rely on, no matter how hard things got for me, as I tried to figure out how or figure out my new life as a foster child.